You know what nobody tells you about owning a gas car? The average driver spends $9,200 on maintenance over 10 years. Oil changes, transmission services, timing belts, spark plugs, exhaust systems. It never stops. But there are electric vehicles out there where owners are hitting 150,000 miles, having spent less than $1,000 total. Some EVs have documented cases of 200,000 plus miles with nothing but tires and wiper blades. By the end of this list, you'll know which electric vehicles are basically maintenance-free money printing machines, and why buy it for life isn't just marketing hype anymore. 1. Tesla Model 3. Standard Range Plus, 2018 to 2021. Here's a test. Ask any mechanic what they think about servicing Teslas. Half will complain about proprietary parts and difficult diagnostics. The other half? They'll admit they barely see them except for tire rotations. The Model 3, Standard Range Plus, the rear-wheel drive version with the smallest battery, turned out to be the reliability sweet spot nobody predicted. Single motor means one thing to break instead of two. Smaller battery means less weight-stressing suspension components. Simpler drivetrain means fewer potential failure points. One documented example in Nevada hit 400,000 miles on the original drivetrain. Total maintenance costs? Roughly $4,200 over 8 years. That includes tires, one set of brake pads, yes, just one set after 400,000 miles because regenerative braking does most of the work, and a handful of cabin air filters. For context, a Honda Accord would cost $8,000 to $10,000 in scheduled maintenance alone over that same period. The simplicity is the whole point. No oil to change every 5,000 miles. No transmission fluid that needs servicing every 30,000. No timing belt that grenades your engine if it fails at 100,000 miles. No exhaust system that rusts out and costs $2,000 to replace. Just tires, windshield washer fluid, and the occasional 12-volt battery replacement every 4 to 5 years. Free supercharging wasn't included for most standard range buyers, but electricity is so cheap compared to gas that owners still save $2,000 to $3,000 annually on fuel. That's $20,000 to $30,000 over 10 years. Add the maintenance savings and you're looking at $35,000 plus in avoided costs. That math changes everything. 2. Nissan Leaf, 2018 to 2023. Picture this. You bought a boring-looking Nissan specifically because you hate car payments and wanted the cheapest electric option. 5 years later, your total maintenance expenses wouldn't cover 2 oil changes on a pickup truck. The Leaf from 2018 forward is basically automotive aspirin. It's boring, it works, and it costs almost nothing to maintain. Multiple owners have documented 100,000 plus miles with maintenance costs under $800 total. We're talking tires, wiper blades, and cabin air filters. That's the entire list. Nissan learned brutal lessons from earlier Leafs with battery problems. The 2018 Plus models fixed those issues with updated thermal management and better battery chemistry. Degradation dropped from deal breaker to barely noticeable for most drivers. Owners with 80,000 to 100,000 miles commonly report 88 to 92% battery capacity remaining. The beauty of the Leaf is its simplicity. There's no elaborate cooling system to fail, no air suspension to leak, no fancy door mechanisms to break. It's an electric motor connected to a battery pack connected to wheels. When there's nothing to break, there's nothing to fix. And when there's nothing to fix, you're not bleeding money at repair shops. Brake life is absurd thanks to regenerative braking. One owner reported original brake pads at 120,000 miles. The mechanic said they were at 60% and suggested checking them again in another 50,000 miles. Brake jobs on gas cars typically happen every 30,000 to 50,000 miles at $300 to $500 per visit. That's $1,500 to $2,000 in brake work the Leaf owner simply never pays. And here's where most buyers get burned. They dismiss the Leaf as outdated and boring, missing the fact that boring and reliable is exactly what saves you money long-term. 3. Chevrolet Bolt, EV/EUVA. Guy told me his accountant bought a 2019 Bolt as a tax write-off and business expense deduction. The accountant ran the numbers after 3 years and realized the Bolt was the best financial decision he'd made in a decade. Not because of the tax benefits, but because he'd spent $340 on maintenance. The Bolt is an accountant's dream vehicle. Predictable costs, minimal maintenance, exceptional reliability. The battery recall that terrified everyone actually made these better. Thousands got brand new battery packs with fresh warranties at no cost. Owners essentially received refurbished vehicles for free. Maintenance requirements are hilariously simple. Rotate tires every 7,500 miles. Replace cabin air filter annually. That's it. GM recommends brake fluid replacement every 50,000 miles, but many mechanics question whether that's even necessary, given how little the brakes actually work, thanks to regenerative braking. The suspension is basic McPherson struts, the same proven design used in millions of vehicles. No fancy adaptive dampers to fail, no air springs to leak. Just conventional parts that last forever and cost normal money to replace when they eventually do wear out. Mechanics love working on Bolts because there's no proprietary nonsense. It's just a regular car with an electric motor. Real-world ownership costs tell the story. Consumer Reports surveyed Bolt owners and found average annual maintenance costs of $80 to $120 for the first 5 years. That's barely more than windshield washer fluid and floor mats. Compare that to the average compact car at $500 to $800 annually in maintenance, and the savings become impossible to ignore. But that's not even the most interesting part about why these cost nothing to maintain. 4. Hyundai Kona Electric. You know what separates the Kona Electric from other EVs? Hyundai actually thought about what happens after the warranty expires. The 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty means most owners will never pay for anything major. But even more importantly, Hyundai designed this thing to last using proven components instead of experimental tech. The electric motor is unsealed and relatively simple. The battery thermal management is straightforward. Everything about it screams, "We built this to be cheap to maintain." Owner forums document maintenance costs that seem almost fictional. One owner tracked every expense for 90,000 miles, $760 total. That included tires, which aren't even maintenance, they're consumables. Without tires, pure maintenance was under $300 for 90,000 miles. That's less than 2 oil changes on a diesel truck. The 2019 to 2023 models have proven especially reliable. No recalls beyond minor software updates that dealers installed for free. No widespread battery problems. No pattern failures in any major components. It's boring reliability, which is exactly what you want when the goal is spending $0 at repair shops. Hyundai parts pricing is reasonable compared to luxury brands. When something does eventually need replacement, where items like shock absorbers at 150,000 miles, the parts don't require a second mortgage. An aftermarket shock for a Kona Electric costs $80 to $120. Compare that to adaptive dampers on a Mercedes EQC at $800 to $1,200 each eye, and the long-term value proposition becomes crystal clear. The warranty coverage extends beyond just the powertrain. The battery gets 10 years as well, which eliminates the single biggest anxiety about EV ownership: expensive battery replacement. Owners drive without that nagging worry about when the $15,000 repair bill arrives. 5. Volkswagen e-Golf. Most people shopping for EVs skip right past the e-Golf without a second thought. The ones who actually bought them? They're quietly laughing all the way to the bank, or rather, not going to the bank because they never need car repair loans. VW built roughly 35,000 e-Golfs for the US market between 2015 to 2019. It was never meant to be a volume seller. But that limited production meant quality control was exceptionally tight. These were built alongside regular Golfs in Germany, a factory that's been perfecting the process since the 1970s. Maintenance costs are shockingly low because it's fundamentally a regular Golf with an electric motor. Everything that's not the drivetrain benefits from decades of refinement and massive parts availability. Suspension components are shared with millions of gas Golfs. Brake parts are conventional and cheap. When something eventually does need replacing, you're paying Golf money, not exotic EV money. One owner documented 125,000 miles over 6 years with $890 in total maintenance. The breakdown: tires, windshield wipers, one cabin air filter, and one 12-volt battery replacement. No dealer visits for services, no unexpected repairs, just boring, predictable transportation that costs essentially nothing to maintain. The electric motor is simple, a single-speed transmission basically, and it's proven across VW's EV lineup. Failure rates are exceptionally low. The battery thermal management is straightforward liquid cooling that works without being overly complex. Everything about the design prioritizes long-term reliability over cutting-edge tech. Insurance costs are reasonable because it's classified as a compact hatchback, not a performance vehicle. Registration fees are low because the curb weight is moderate. Every aspect of ownership costs less than you'd expect, and it all adds up to a vehicle that genuinely saves you a fortune over time. 6. Tesla Model S 75D/90D 2016 to 2019. I can already hear the skeptics. A used Tesla saving money with their repair bills? Yeah, about that. You're thinking of the wrong issues. The 2016 to 2019 Model S 75D and 90D represent peak Tesla durability before the company started cost-cutting everything to hit profit margins. These cars were overbuilt. Dual motors, but not the tri-motor complexity of the Plaid. Air suspension that actually works. Build quality that's noticeably better than current production. Here's what shocks most people. Maintenance costs are minimal if nothing breaks. And for Model S 75D/90D owners, stuff rarely breaks. The drivetrain is bulletproof. Multiple documented examples exceed 300,000 miles on original motors and batteries. Battery degradation averages 10% or less at 150,000 miles. The air suspension will eventually fail. That's the one predictable expensive repair. Typically happens around 100,000 to 120,000 miles at roughly $3,000 per corner to replace. But here's the thing. You can convert to coilovers for $5,000 to $7,000 total and never worry about it again. After that one-time expense, maintenance drops back to basically nothing. Many of these came with free lifetime supercharging, which fundamentally changes the ownership math. You're not just avoiding oil changes, you're avoiding electricity costs entirely. Over 200,000 miles, that's $15,000 to $20,000 in saved fuel costs compared to a luxury sedan. The battery pack design is simple relative to newer models. Cells are easily accessible if individual modules need replacement, and third-party shops have figured out how to service them for a fraction of Tesla's prices. When something does need attention, you're not locked into dealership pricing anymore. This matters more than people realize. 7. BMW i3. Back in 2014, BMW did something unusual. They built an EV to actually last instead of treating it as a temporary experiment. The carbon fiber body doesn't rust, ever. Traditional vehicles battle corrosion constantly, especially in salt states. Door sills rot, wheel wells corrode, frame components weaken. The i3's carbon fiber reinforced plastic body panels literally cannot rust. 20 years from now, i3s will still have pristine bodies while conventional cars are falling apart from the inside out. Maintenance costs for the i3 are absurdly low. BMW's official service schedule is basically rotate the tires and check the brakes occasionally. That's it. No oil changes, no transmission services, no coolant flushes, no timing belt replacements. The scheduled maintenance literally costs almost nothing because there's barely anything to maintain. One owner tracked 5 years and 85,000 miles. Total maintenance costs were $625. That included tires, which aren't even maintenance. They're wear items every car needs. Pure maintenance costs were under $200. For comparison, a BMW 3 Series would require $3,000 to $4,000 in scheduled services over that same period. The range extender models add a small 650 cubic centimeter motorcycle engine as a generator, which adds one maintenance item, oil changes for the generator. But even with that, maintenance costs remain minimal, one oil change every 2 to 3 years for most drivers. For the added peace of mind of extended range, it's worth it. BMW parts pricing is reasonable for the i3 because BMW wanted it to succeed long-term. They didn't treat it as a compliance car. They built a legitimate product with proper part supply and reasonable service costs. When wear items eventually need replacement, you're paying surprisingly normal money. The electric motor is sealed and essentially maintenance-free. No gears to service, no clutches to replace, no transmission fluid to change. It just spins and creates torque. And after 100,000 miles, it spins exactly the same as when it was new. 8. Kia Niro EV. Unlike some EVs that prioritize performance over practicality, the Niro EV was designed from day one to be a sensible, low-maintenance family hauler. Mission accomplished. The beauty of the Niro EV is how conventional everything is underneath the electric bits. McPherson strut suspension, traditional brakes, basic HVAC. Nothing exotic or proprietary that requires specialized service. Any competent mechanic can work on everything except the battery and motor, and those rarely need attention. Kia's warranty coverage eliminates the anxiety about expensive repairs during the crucial early years. But more importantly, failure rates are exceptionally low even outside warranty periods. Owner forums are boring, which is exactly what you want. No threads about widespread problems, just people asking about tire recommendations and which charging networks they prefer. Real-world maintenance tracking shows costs averaging $100 to $150 annually for the first 100,000 miles. That's tire rotations, cabin air filters, and the occasional windshield wiper replacement. One owner documented 110,000 miles over 5 years, with total maintenance costs under $800. For comparison, a similar gas-powered Sportage would cost $3,500 to $4,500 over that same period. The regenerative braking is calibrated perfectly, aggressive enough to recover energy but not so harsh that it's annoying. The result? Brake pads last forever. Owners regularly report original pads at 80,000 to 100,000 miles with 50% plus life remaining. That's 3 or 4 brake jobs on a traditional vehicle, saving $1,200 to $1,600 over the life of the car. Kia dealers actually understand how to service EVs, which separates them from some brands where dealers are clueless about electric vehicles. The service appointments are quick because there's so little to actually service. In and out in 30 minutes for a major service, that's really just a tire rotation and visual inspection. Davini. Chevrolet Volt, 2016 to 2019. Here's the controversial take. The Volt might be the cheapest vehicle to maintain that nobody realizes is basically an EV for most people. Technically, it's a plug-in hybrid, not a pure EV. But most Volt owners report running in electric-only mode for 80 to 90% of their miles. The gas engine barely runs for drivers with short commutes. For all practical purposes, it's an electric vehicle with a backup generator you rarely use. The electric-first design means maintenance is minimal. The engine requires oil changes, but many owners go 2 to 3 years between them because the engine literally doesn't run enough to contaminate the oil. GM's oil life monitoring system tracks actual engine runtime, not just miles. So services happen based on need, rather than arbitrary intervals. One owner documented 150,000 miles over 7 years, with total maintenance costs of $1,200. That included 3 oil changes, 2 sets of brake pads, tires, and routine inspections. For 150,000 miles, that's phenomenally cheap. A comparable cruise would have cost $4,000 to $5,000 in maintenance over the same period. The Voltec drivetrain, the combination of electric motors, generator, and planetary gear set, proved exceptionally reliable. High mileage examples routinely exceed 200,000 miles without drivetrain issue. The system is complex in theory, but robust in practice. GM actually got it right. Battery degradation is minimal for a plug-in hybrid. The battery isn't as large as pure EVs, but it's also not cycled as heavily because the range extender kicks in before deep discharge. Owners with 100,000 plus miles report losing 10 to 15% capacity, which barely impacts daily use when you started with 53 miles of electric range. Insurance companies figured out these things don't break, so rates are surprisingly reasonable. Comprehensive coverage costs are lower than comparable sedans because claim rates are minimal. Everything about Volt ownership costs less than you'd expect. 10. Ford F-150 Lightning 2022 to 2023 Pro models. I saved this one for last because it challenges everything people assume about truck ownership costs. Conventional wisdom says trucks are money pits. Diesel maintenance, transmission services, engine repairs, exhaust work, the bills never stop. Diesel truck owners report average maintenance costs of $800 to $1,200 annually. The Lightning? Early adopters are tracking costs under $200 per year. The Lightning Pro, the base model aimed at commercial buyers, was designed specifically for low total cost of ownership. Ford targeted fleet buyers who track every penny. The result? A truck built to be maintained cheaply. Conventional suspension, straightforward design, no unnecessarily complicated systems. One fleet owner documented 80,000 miles across multiple Lightning Pros in 18 months. Average maintenance per truck was $340. That's less than 2 oil changes on an F-150 EcoBoost. For commercial operators tracking costs obsessively, the savings are substantial enough to justify switching entire fleets to electric. The Pro Power onboard capability adds another dimension to the value equation. The truck doubles as a mobile generator rated for 9.6 kilowatts output. For contractors, that eliminates the need for a separate $3,000 to $5,000 diesel generator on every job site. The truck pays for itself in equipment savings before you even calculate fuel and maintenance. Battery durability is proving solid. Early high-mileage examples show 94 to 97% capacity retention at 60,000 to 80,000 miles. Ford's thermal management system works well, and the battery pack design is straightforward enough that future repairs, if needed, won't require complete replacement. Individual modules can be serviced, which fundamentally changes the long-term cost equation. The warranty coverage is comprehensive, 8 years/100,000 miles on the battery and drivetrain. For commercial buyers calculating total cost of ownership over 5 years, that warranty eliminates essentially all risk. The truck either lasts or Ford replaces it. Either way, the owner isn't paying for major repairs during the crucial payback period. Brake wear on the Lightning is minimal thanks to one-pedal driving and aggressive regenerative braking. Ford estimates brake pads will last 100,000 plus miles for most drivers. That's the lifetime of the vehicle for many fleet operators. No brake jobs, no rotor replacements, just occasional inspections to verify everything still works. This represents something bigger than just a cheap-to-maintain truck. The Lightning proves that electric vehicles can succeed in the toughest, most demanding use cases while costing dramatically less to operate and maintain. Commercial buyers who track every dollar are switching to electric, not because of environmental concerns, but because the math is undeniable. That's the whole lesson of this list. When maintenance costs approach zero and reliability is rock solid, buy once, own forever stops being a fantasy and becomes legitimate financial strategy. Here's what this list proves. The cheapest vehicle to own isn't always the cheapest to buy. The Bolt and Leaf offer minimal maintenance at affordable prices. The Model 3 and Model S proved Tesla-built durable EVs before cost-cutting took over. The Kona Electric and Niro EV show Korean manufacturers figured out reliability. Even expensive options like the i3 and Lightning save money through reduced maintenance over time. Which one fits your maintenance-free future? Drop a comment and let me know if you've experienced the low-cost ownership of EVs firsthand. Hit subscribe for more real-world vehicle content focused on what actually matters, total cost of ownership, not just sticker price. And remember, the best vehicle isn't the one with the lowest payment. It's the one that costs almost nothing to maintain for the next decade. I'll catch you in the next one.